Hello and welcome back to the Morningscape podcast. Let's get right into it tonight, folks. We have the biggest slate of the year so far. There'll be a couple more of these, but we are blessed with a $20 50K to first. And if you're looking behind me, the Barn Bash, 200,000 to first. Matt, how are we feeling? Are we ready to win tens of dollars tomorrow?
Oh man. Yeah, I was fortunate enough to bank a ticket to the 555 on Sunday night's NHL slate. So otherwise I was looking at sitting this one out, just been a tough go. But yeah, so I have one bullet and I'm ready to fire it at maybe the worst it's a terrible slate as far as the payout structure is concerned, but it's a great slate as far as the top prize is concerned. So, we're always focused on first place, but doubly so, triply so on this slate. The $20, 50K to first, I think 15K to second, and the 555 is 200K to first and 70K to second, which obviously you wouldn't complain. But the fall off is just so dramatic. I think it gets down to let me just pull it up. Yeah, it gets down to 10K for finishing sixth place out of 1,200 people. So like just a dramatically top heavy contest. And yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. We've got some news that we're waiting for tomorrow. A lot of moving pieces, a couple of obvious values to discuss. And yeah, it's going to be a doozy with the NBA on break for the election in the US and the NHL takes center stage. So I guess I'm excited for it. I'm mostly, kind of amped up for it. And that could be said about the election or the hockey, I suppose.
They're still doing that, huh? Yeah. I'm excited for hockey. Let's certainly get into that side of the equation. I can't even imagine. You live in Pennsylvania. I would rather die. I just fade the whole thing and move to the hockey and don't know what's going on. I mute all the words, all the stuff. So I like to escape with hockey. How about you? You ready to?
That's nice. Yeah, we can. By the way, if you're in the US, just go vote. Like, who cares? Just go vote. You can write in me if you want. I mean, please, I want to be your president someday. So like, just vote for me. But yeah, it's cool. And your local politics matters far more than the orange man bad discussion that permeates on Twitter. Like the local elections actually matter, and the big man bad. You don't need to worry about that. So, yeah, I should do that. So make sure you do that. I should say that. I should
don't
say.
write
So
in me. Yeah, don't write in me. I will abstain. If I win, I'm not going. So don't put me on the ballot. Yeah, no, we have a really cool slate, honestly. Let's certainly get to it. There's 4 games at 7, 7:30, and 8, and 8, and 8, a 9, a 10, and a 10:30. A pretty good spread. So hockey kind of just never ending. Some weird matchups. Some again, unbelievable value. Like value that like if you're watching on YouTube, right over my shoulder, Terry Lehkonen, he's not going to get overlooked by the vast majority of people. First game back. We'll get into everything. Make sure, I guess we'll just do the disclaimer. If you aren't watching on YouTube or are checking it out later, we're just a couple away from, we'll get to the comment in a second, a couple away from 400. The chase to, catch Mr. Beast is on. I'm a few million away. So just don't be afraid to get in there and subscribe. But yeah,
I thought that the Swolecast was going under because they saw us in the rearview mirror, and the Swolecast was like, "No, we're not gonna be able to compete with the Morningscape podcast on Tuesdays." So we're just gonna have to fold the organization. So glad to see that the Swolecast will be back in some form. I think tomorrow. It's gone a little quiet there, but maybe that's just because not paying attention. But yeah, the comment here from Marco in the chat. If Systemic gets written in, does the federal budget get wired straight to his bank? And I think the answer is no. But that's because the bank would just deny it because he already has all my money. So like, what does he need the federal budget for?
Yeah, it's fun out there. The NHL streets are fun. No, but
on that note,
we are.
One more thing before you transition us. The the last Barn Bash, that system of one in February of last year, I recapped that on my newsletter. I recapped every single big contest from last year on my newsletter. So I highly urge you to go check that out at Fake Moods on Twitter. It's my most recent retweeted post. It's also in the Discord. It's in wherever. It's on my Beehive. So just go to that and you'll see all of my different write ups. I read through them like earlier today, and it was a really weird time capsule. I mean, there was a slate where Ty Dellandrea was like uber chalk on Dallas. Like just weird stuff that happened less than a year ago that you're like, oh yeah, like that happened. Just goes to show like we know everything about the NHL right now, yet we've forgotten far more about the NHL than we will ever happen to know about the NHL. So just a weird little memory lane thing. Also good for strategy purposes, I think, just to sort of understand. I noticed at the beginning of last season, hey, these cheap goalies are getting really chalky really fast, and maybe that's still just the proper EV play, but it's not as unknown as it was 3 years ago, where a plus 150 dog at 7K was getting no ownership against Carolina or whatever. That's actually coming in now. So like those little things I think you can pick up. So I urge you to go check that out. But yeah, why don't you transition us into the show?
Well, what I was going to kind of say is that this is like, as you started, the NBA is off. There's no NFL. This is when people jump into the hockey space for the first time. So you recapping, which I was going to mention as well. So I'm glad you jumped in anyways. It is really important because you'll see, in my opinion, more of what's going to be like the optimals will be run and people will basically do small permutations off of it. So I would try to get a sense of what that'll look like. Does anything else change on these slates where we know a lot of non-hockey, non-puck knowers, if you will, are jumping in and then splashing around in the water?
Um, that's an interesting question. I would say in the aggregate, the main thing to be mindful of is just that team totals are just so important. I could get into specifics that are jumping the mind, but I don't really think they matter. But just be mindful of like, oh, if we on the podcast say like, oh, this team doesn't have a great matchup, blah blah blah, but they have a high team total, that's probably not going to matter. Like, people are going to play them unless the prices are completely out of hand. But what makes every slate unique is largely different from time to time. It's not like, there's one lever that just sort of you move it on the meter and, it's yes, no type thing. There's just so many dimensions to a slate that, like Arturi Lehkonen at 3,500 is not going to be present in most of last year's slates. So like,
Yeah.
you just kind of got to take it for what it is. And we'll try to cover those specific things on this show. And I'll also cover them, in the recap of tomorrow's slate that I'll write for Wednesday morning. So, yeah, always trying to learn, always trying to get better. But in general, be super mindful of team totals. Don't let those creep up on you. But yeah, on 11 game slate, I don't think you need to be totally beholden to them either.
Yep, of the 11 games, 5 are 6.5. One of them would be the first game on the docket. It is the Ottawa Senators at the Buffalo Sabres. As I made a tweet about earlier, like my mental well-being will be much more hinged on the Sabres dropping their 4th game in a row. It's gonna happen. The Sabres, of course, live to hurt me. They are at home. It is a high total. It's basically a pick 'em. It's minus 112 for the Sabres, actually a very small home favorite, surprisingly enough. If you go over to Natural Stat Trick and you say, you know what, I'm going to look at the whole season, I'm going to go 5-on-5, and I'm going to do Corsi for percentage. The Buffalo Sabres rank 4th in the NHL, and they are good and find ways to lose. Ottawa is good. I don't think there's any, like, again, I feel like it's hard to poke a hole at Ottawa. They're kind of just in the middle everywhere, which isn't a bad thing when you're finding scoring, but it feels like there's, I think it's a really even matchup. There should be goals. Where, I guess we'll start with Ottawa if that's what you had up,
Yep.
but I'll give you a second here.
Yeah.
I mean, with Ottawa, it does feel like there's still value in that Ottawa too. That's played really, really well. It's hard to ignore how good Brady the Chuck has been. But 8,700 feels a little steep on this slate. I just don't really think Ottawa's going to garner a ton of ownership. What are your thoughts though?
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with that. I mean, I don't think many spot like the thing about tomorrow's slate is that obviously we don't have like ownership projections up, but I'm going to zoom ahead here to Colorado because there's no mistaking that Colorado at home against Seattle is going to be monstrously owned, and
Yeah,
you can see why. Arturi Lehkonen is 3,500. You look at long-term samples; he's been just a really, really good player. He's a better
yeah,
per minute DK scorer than Mikko Rantanen. And obviously, you look at last year, and it's a little bit worse. But keep in mind, he didn't have that sort of premium role for most of the season. And then come the playoffs is when he actually took over that role, and it was 10 games or so. I think they were around in the playoffs last year, but he was really really good in the playoffs. So like the last time we saw Lehkonen, he was just smashing. So like the projection systems are gonna know that McKinnon is always owned and the matchup is pretty solid. So like I would not expect
yeah.
to see much ownership outside of Colorado. Really centralized. We have Winnipeg hosting Utah, Carolina hosting Philly, and I think that's really it as far as where I truly would not be surprised to see like a 20-ish% owned player. So like yeah, Brady Kachuk might be 7, he might be 9, he might be 2. I don't really know. And of course that matters, but I don't think it matters enough for us to spend a ton of time arguing it. I would say that with Kachuk, the main issues I have are one, Jake Sanderson is properly priced, if not overpriced. His production's really fallen off from the early season highs that he was producing. This number was somewhere in the 10s or 11s in expected fantasy points per game. At 9 right now. So like he's been trending the wrong direction, and he's up to 6,400. Tim Stützle has been dramatically outproducing his expecteds. That's to be
Mhm.
expected. Tim Stützle is super talented, but like the extent to which he's not shooting is quite concerning. And then Ridley Gregg on that line is also just a non-starter for fantasy purposes, especially on a 11-game slate. So if you want to play Brady Kachuk, like sure, go for it, but you're gonna be stacking him with some really tough values, or you're gonna be going across lines to power play stack, which leaves off Claude Giroux theoretically because Giroux Norris Batherson as a second line has been their best line. Um, I would argue that there's really no better matchup for the Sabres than the others. So like I don't really care about line matching here either. And it just doesn't feel like an appealing spot to me.
Yep.
I don't know. Maybe you're, just like, oh, I'm gonna go all in on the sadness tomorrow, but I don't see myself paying 6K for Drake Batherson in this spot.
Yeah, no, I mean it's certainly I'm taking a real stab here, and like I think on this kind of a slate, as you kind of pointed out, it's probably not necessary to go this far down the well on Brady Stutzel, which again I think is where I'd go, just because I just don't really see yeah, the prices have come up enough. Like Norris is not 3,100 or wherever he started the year, he's 5,100. Batherson continues to kind of be a little bit overpriced. Like 5,800 is fair, but like it's not a good value. It's not a value. And like this Buffalo team, I don't actually want to attack. So you're just trying to get leverage. And there's 11 games, and there's most like I don't even know how many leverage spots there could be. That's all this is. It's a overpriced leverage spot. I think it's unnecessary, but
Yep.
no one's
One
gonna
more,
play it. And yeah, give it a stab if you want.
one more question: is Adam Gaudette the best player in the NHL? Yes or no?
Probably Kaprizov and then Gaudette is what
Okay,
I'd rank
that's
it
fair.
1 and 2. He's probably.
Over.
I mean, the thing is he could. Yeah, well, he's more of a factor than McDavid when it comes to winning hockey games. It feels like, in my
Yeah.
opinion. So, yeah, probably somewhere around that range of McDavid, a little better.
Over the past 5 games, Adam Gaudette has 6 goals. Adam Gaudette.
Yep.
This started
Yeah.
against
Mhm.
Vegas when I did my Friday write up for the Vegas. It was Nevada day there, and it was the early game, and I'm like, without Shane Pinto, Gaudette's a guy who we loved as a fantasy whatever. And I was like, you can play him if you want. Did I play him on that Friday? No, he's had 2 shots, had 2 goals in 9 minutes. Oh, well, great. That can't happen again. We do our podcast I think it was Thursday or no, I think it was Tuesday for
Yeah,
St.
Tuesday.
Louis. and they win 8-1, and he has 2 goals on 5 shots. 5 shots. The dude hit 27 on DK in an 8-1 victory. And then next 2 games he goes back to back with a goal in 11 minutes of ice time. It's very clear that he could get a better role as a result of this. It's unlikely. Like, I don't think he supplants Ridley Gregg, for example, on the top line. But if they really do struggle, it's hard to argue that he's not the first guy up as far as like moving up the lineup at this point. 6 goals in 5 games will do that for a guy. I don't hate the idea at 2,500. Just, you need a center, just punt it off, go that way. Because again, he has the sort of track record that, he should have been a better offensive player than he showed in the NHL. Just, for whatever reason, didn't do it. And he's fallen off the prospect track for sure, but this performance so far at least has me somewhat interested. So I'm not advocating for it, but if you're doing a 150 set, get a couple shares of Adam Gaudette in there just so you can laugh at me when I'm sad at him putting up 15 again on this slate. So on the Buffalo side, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, things have been better. There's values here. Like, it feels like there's values here just because the entire second power play outside of Alex Tuck is incredibly cheap. Like I said, Ottawa is a fine team. They're not blowing the doors off in any capacity. They're not getting their doors blown off quite as badly. Like, the one thing that we could say about Ottawa last year is they were bad defensively in almost any possible aspect, and their goaltending never bailed them out. Well, now they're okay defensive. They're right in the middle, and their goaltending is finding ways to make saves. On a 1-game slate, anything can happen, and there's punts here that I think are at least worthy of taking a look at. Benson doesn't really like to shoot. He should be back for Buffalo, line 2 with Quinn and Cousins. Cousins still on that top power play at 4,400. Finally scored a goal on the power play. Kind of a bit of a fluky one, really, but it'll get the job done. Doesn't really matter too much. Zucker 3,700 feels a bit steep, even though he's on that top power play. You're kind of paying quite a premium for a guy that's most likely going to get 14 to 15 minutes. Isn't really a prolific rate shooter, and will need a power play point to get there. And it's like, at that point, what is your team looking like that's going to win with any of these guys? Like, I kind of tend to just think like you could take a look at Dylan Cousins. And other than that, I mean, I could conceivably stack Tage, but I don't know if I'm going there. But Tage has really been a lot better than his price. If he does explode, and we know he has that in him, then it could be put the slate to bed early, which is why you have to consider a guy with his level of upside.
Yeah, Matt, MN Matt in the chat. It's a big slate when MN Matt's hanging out at 6:00 West Coast time, watching us talk about the slate. But 2 dudes in a spreadsheet, Monday Night Fun. It's a 200K up top slate. So happy to have you here, Matt. The one thing I'll say about Zucker is that, with so much of the chalk coming in around Arturi Lehkonen, if you want to just say like, okay, I'm just going to fade Lehkonen here, Zucker's not a terrible way to do it. I mean, his long-term outlook is really, really good from a per minute standpoint. Of course, the problem is, with McLeod and Greenway, is he going to crack 16 minutes? No.
Yeah.
But if they get into a 5-6 power play spot, like, that could get up closer to the 19 minutes and just, overwhelmingly on the power play. And so I'll need to do a little bit more digging. I bet the Wookiee sheets will have a better look at sort of how those power play shots are translating, as far as, is Zucker taking 10% of the power play shots with Tage out there, or is he taking 30% of them? Because that answer probably matters as far as whether what I'm saying is relevant or not. But it's at least an idea, because his long-term track record is really good for fantasy production. And I mean, Ryan McLeod, again, is one of my favorite impact players in the league. Like, I'm betting on him as a playmaker. So like, it's at least interesting to think about right in that price range for Lehkonen, where, power play one guys sub 4K don't grow on trees. So, at least file that one away for moving forward. Anything else in this game?
No, it's, again, I think it's the total's good. It feels like there's a spot to take a peek at, but I don't think you have to go crazy. This game that you're pulling up, Boston at Toronto, 6 over under plus 100 on the over, one of our lower totals of the night per Vegas. Boston is a plus 130 road dog, minus 155 on the Maple Leafs. The big story here, of course, will be that David Pastrnak was benched in the third period on Sunday night's big win over Seattle. Coach's decision. Pastrnak had, I believe, 7 shots, not 7 on goal, 6.
Yeah.
Wait, no,
No,
it
he
was
had
7 on
7.
goal. Was
He
it
had 7 on goal.
And then, 2 missed. Kind of seemed weird. I didn't actually really watch a ton of the game, but only getting 14 minutes with a lot of power play run
Yeah.
is because he missed the entire third period. So if you're wondering what the heck happened, there you go.
He had an egregious power play giveaway that led to, Seattle was punchless the entire night. And maybe the third period was just score effects, but in the, I think, early third or late second, he had a terrible shift on the power play where he gave the puck away. They go down the ice and they're taking like 6 swacks at the puck, and he's just like watching them do it. And I think he just got benched after that. And to his credit, after the game, he was like, yeah, I got benched, whatever. And the coach was like, yeah, you got benched. Like, cool. So it seems like they're moving on. What might be a little bit interesting here, though, is that Tyler Johnson was signed to a contract and he was centering the second line. So what I have here just might be completely wrong. Tyler Johnson's not on the DFS slate or anything. So, even when he is, he's not super relevant, but it's at least worth keeping in mind because Boston, despite their win against Seattle, is a team that's kind of floundering, looking for answers. And so what they have might shift up dramatically. Now, it helps them that they go into Toronto, a place where, obviously the Leafs and Bruins have a long history, and it is a one-sided history. But it's at least noteworthy that Brad Marchand at 5,300 is generating some of the greatest expected fantasy points per game of any player in the league. He's above 14. I don't have the. It's not an easy list to look at. Just I don't have anything formatted in that way. But on the slate, he is behind only Kaprizov, Matthews, Pastrnak, Svechnikov, Kyle Connor, Mikko Rantanen, Cale Makar, Jake Gensel, Kucherov, and then Brad Marchand. And he is a significant discount from those guys. I do not think he will be owned to any extent, on the slate. And the price works. 5,300 is a great price for someone who's getting a bunch of chances and just isn't getting the finishing to go with it. So regardless of what the lines are, if he's sticking with Pastrnak and with someone as a center, I'm highly interested. And even as a one-off, I would be somewhat interested in Marchand as well, just given what he's doing to date, which is shooting the hell out of the puck. Not something I would have expected to see from him.
Yeah, it's fine. I do think that, again, it's like if you just say, what is the media putting out there into the world right now, and how do I fade that if it's not correct, right? And like this, Boston team is not great, but I don't think they're a complete and total dumpster fire. They're very, very low on depth, and if they're going to put all the top guys together, including Charlie McAvoy, who seemingly they turned off and back on again, and then he said, "Oh wait, I can play hockey. Okay, I'll shoot the puck 9 times at the goalie." Yeah, perfect. Didn't ever consider that until now, for like a year and a half. And I'm not saying you play him at 5,500. I still think that's a bad price. He's still been terrible on the year. It's one game. I get it. It's Seattle, not Toronto, on the road. I guess I'm just saying that like all of the offense still should probably flow through like 4 guys. So do with that what you wish.
Yeah. How many shots did he have? 6 shots last game, or no? He had 7, right?
7 goal, 2 miss.
Yeah. Okay. I'm looking at the Hockey Viz maps.
I think they're both blocked actually, but I don't think that really matters.
They were making a concerning effort to feed him for one-timers on the power play. So
concerning.
Again, it was concerning because they're literally like David Pastrnak's passing the puck to him, and he's ready to take a one-timer, and then he gives it over to Marchand, and Marchand's like, well, now Pastrnak's covered. Let me just give it to McAvoy, and he's firing from the point into the goalie's chest, which, that's fantasy points. That's good. Points. It was very different from normal McAvoy, where he's out there to just, pass.
Like if you would have told me McAvoy put up 25.4, I would have said, okay, but he had to have scored a goal. And it's like, no, he had an assist, and then 10 shots was blocks.
Yeah.
hit the blocks bonus, 7 shots, double
Yep.
bonus, bang bang, and it's like he just. We know it's in his range of outcomes. We know it's there.
Yeah.
It just hasn't even been remotely close until the last game.
Yeah. I
Toronto's really,
I
really freaking good.
I
Let's
don't think
not get it
there's
twisted, but
yeah, I don't think
they're
there's
really
anything
good.
else on Boston to worry about. I mean, with Tyler Johnson in the fold, like Trent Frederick, oh wow, like 2,500 Trent Frederick. It just he's not producing. I get it. The expected fantasy points are kind of there, but like I don't know, just not any fun. I don't really want to play the volatility game of the lines getting all jumbled up. And frankly, this team revolves around
Yeah,
Marchand and Pasternak still. So those are my only two interesting notes. On the Leaf side, we saw the debut of a 5 forward power play last game in Minnesota, which is novel. It's certainly something that I think we are in full support of here. And it
give it a
just
go.
basically replaces what you think their power play one as Morgan Riley for Matthew Nyes. So, like, that's pretty fun. It means the top line is perfectly correlated. It means that Tavares and Nylander are perfectly correlated. Um, it's just a matter of can you stomach the fact that you're stacking the Leafs against Boston. I don't know. Thoughts on that?
Not a ton. You could do it. It's the problem with Matthew Nye is it's just that like it seems unbelievable that a player like again if you're not looking at it right he played with Matthews and Marner. How many assists do you think Matthew Nyes has on the season? Getting to the top part. It's not the only time. You know what I mean? Like it's
I
just
think,
not the first game he's played in the power play with these guys either. He's played
yeah,
multiple games in the power play with both of them. How many assists?
I think I can picture one, so I'm gonna go with three.
One.
Shit. Okay.
And it's just like,
Uh,
okay, well, let's look at the past few years. And it's like, how are the points not following? And then he has 7 points. He has 6 goals.
yeah,
He's not been bad at all.
yeah,
It is pretty crazy how it's just like, I mean, maybe it's just how good Marner and Matthews are with skating with the puck that he just never has to. And that just contributes to him not getting there. But like at 4K, it's fine just because there's such an obvious, 3,500 absolute, chalk slam that he might not get any real ownership even with this role increase. And like, I'm not saying you can't play him with Matthews and Marner, but it just kind of feels like you're really threading a needle of like, oh, okay, like I need, him to find a way to get his second assist of the season, or if he scores a bunch of goals, is Matthews getting there? Like, I mean, again, like
yeah,
it could happen, right? They could score 8, but like, I don't know how
yeah.
well this really
Eh,
bodes exactly. Where it's like, I almost wish he was completely irrelevant, so I could just say, screw it, Matthews Marner, moving on. I don't know. I don't think I'm going to play into this game honestly,
Yeah.
at
So
all. I think Boston's fine, but yeah,
the
what are you gonna
the
say?
main thing that
Your thoughts?
concerns me is that even though Boston's been pretty poor, like in terms of controlling the pace, to controlling the action, like they're underwater and all the 5-on-5 stats, they've been a very, very slow Corsi pace team. So like, yeah, when you're talking about Austin Matthews, it's like, can we get a game where the Leafs put up 44 shots and Nyes scores a goal or two, and Matthews obviously doesn't score those goals, and like is he getting 11 shots and 2 assists or something to sort of put up that score that's like, yeah, match that, Nate McKinnon. And the answer with Boston's like he's probably only getting there via scoring. So like, yeah, could they score 6 against Boston? Sure. Boston's looked pretty terrible to start the season. um but like it's not a situation where I'm overly willing to bet on that, I think. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think I'm staying away, but certainly an interesting team with the 5 forward power play unit. I mean, Tavares Nyland will be unowned, and they are a combined
Yep.
13-2, and that's kind of alluring too. Um,
Would you could throw in Pacioretty on that mix?
oh god, that's a tough question because I think if I'm playing JT and Nylander over Matthews, it's probably on a McKinnon team, to be honest. And like,
Yeah.
I don't think I'm playing Patches over Lehkonen for any uh, particular reason. But
No. Okay. Good
yeah,
call. Good shout on that. Yeah. I mean, I get it. I think again, it's a game that a lot of people are going to X out. There's reasons you don't need to exit out. I do think that honestly, you made the sharpest point of like Tavares Nylander is going to be super unique and like could definitely get there. People will look at Jeremy Swayman and just fade out Toronto, and people will look how bad Boston's been and
yeah.
fade them out. It's fine, but we can
The
move on when
price,
you're ready.
The price too. Jeremy Swayman 7,300.
Oh
Either
boy.
Solars or Wall are 8,100. So like this game is priced as Toronto's a significant favorite.
Yeah.
I'm guessing it closes that way too. But actually, what is the line right now?
No, it's minus 155 for the home Leafs. Not
Okay.
a ton. It's
Yeah.
it's not nothing, but like in a 6 with the over being plus money on the 6, it's like you're still not giving either team a very high implied team total. It's going to be expensive to stack either of them, and Swayman should see a good amount of ownership to fit in the McKinnons of the world on a goalie that people do believe is like a difference maker. And then they're fading Toronto, obviously, because you're not playing, McKinnon. I mean, you in theory could probably, but like I can't imagine you're winning this slate with McKinnon and
all right,
not with the stacked mates if he gets there. I don't know, going too deep in the weeds.
Exactly. We got 9 more games to get to. We're 31 minutes in. We did a great job starting the show. Ben here, Moods and DJ, greater than Monday Night Football. Absolutely. Stupid sport. Olaf, what's up? And Adam's Digest. Thank you for joining us live here on the Morning Skate Podcast. So let's get into Calgary. Calgary at Montreal. What do we have here?
Yeah. 6.5 over under minus 110 either side. That is the highest total technically. If you, interesting. I kind of makes sense. It's basically a pick 'em, a little bit of a minus 125 on the Flames, so nothing crazy. But like these are the matchups I love for DFS. You get the high total, you get the kind of even type of game. You can kind of see how to stack this. I think in certain ways, but I have my lane, and I'll get to it here, but we're starting with the Flames. So yeah, I kind of like that Sharangovich line quite a bit at 4,100. I just like him as a player quite a bit. Hasn't been a great start. Obviously, the injury was pretty bad. He comes in 5,600. I'm like, dang, pretty competitively priced. Drops all the way down to 4,100. Yeah, he's not been great. It takes time to get back in the swing of things. Had a really nice shorthanded goal against the Oilers. That line looked okay, which is saying something for the fact that he's, anchored to Jonathan Huberdeau and Anthony Mantha. But Huberdeau and Sharangovich power play won against a horrific Montreal Canadian team, and they're 8,300. I think you could do worse in this world.
Yes,
even
and
I could squint and play Mackenzie Weegar too at 6K. I don't want to, but there's double bonus upside there, and he's not going to be piled on at all.
The lines got all sorts of jumbled last game. This was my best sense of what they finished as, but it could be wrong in all honesty. So if you want to play Calgary, just make sure you check what they're up to. But yeah,
I would say again, definitely keep an eye on it. But I would say no matter what happens, like Sharangovich is they feel he's back. I mean, he was second in ice time only to Backlund, who they were killing a lot of penalties, and Backlund was basically just out there for all of the kill, which makes sense. So yeah, I am pretty interested here, like I'm saying, in Sharangovich. I think that he is back. I would truly love it if he was with Kadri Kuzmenko. I think I'd go all in on that. Not sure if we get it. We'll see. But I think that would be all the way for me, because I don't know how owned this Flames team is really going to be no matter what. I'd love some perfect correlation.
I would say if they hold as a favorite in a 6.5 total at these prices, they're gonna be far more popular than I like. But I mean, this is where I just sort of spontaneously combust on live video, because the Calgary Flames being favored against anyone on the road is just something my brain cannot compute. Is it warranted? I don't know. Montreal's
no longer
been bad.
No longer dead last in Corsi against per 60 at 5-on-5.
Yeah,
the Ducks have taken that role over. They're second worst in Corsi for percentage at 5-on-5.
Yeah.
Very, very narrowly, the Red Wings edge them out. I mean, this is a very bad team. But
look, they're getting better, so I can fade the Flames, right? Right, Montreal. They're now. Their 5-game trends are getting slightly better on defense. They're still terrible, but they're getting better, so I can fade them, right?
Yeah.
Right? please?
Right.
Okay,
Right.
great.
Right.
Montreal. What do we think about Montreal? These were their lines in practice on Monday. Caulfield, Suzuki, Doc, Newhook, Evans, Slavkovsky, Anderson, Dvorak, Gallagher, Heineman, Kapanen, Armia. The top line remains perfectly correlated 5-on-5 and the power play. What's your lean in this spot?
Yeah. I don't know if you're playing Montreal and you're not playing Caulfield. I don't even know why you showed up to play. Like Kirby Doc isn't really getting it done either. Slavkovsky's probably been pretty unlucky. If he goes back to that top line, it would be certainly would put him back in play. I mean, this team it's a very young team, and the old pieces are falling apart. It's not a lot of punch, not a lot of fight, but they have Cole Caulfield, and that's the only way they're going to be competitive is if he's shooting, 35% all season long. And if he's going to do that, he's going to have a couple games where he shoots 65%. It's like it's going to happen. And this Flames team isn't great. I wonder about a Dustin Wolf. I expect him to probably be back in net after a couple pretty bad performances. Vladar started a few, could go back to Wolf. People tend to believe in this guy. They might be afraid for some reason, but again, he's been pretty terrible. I don't have a problem with it. I like the Flame side more. I could see a game stack working here, but I don't think you have to go crazy. Like you just play Caulfield and then stack the Flames and then like get something else. And that's a cromulent team in the highest total.
Yeah, I'm pretty uninspired by their line combinations. Gotta say, I'm not chomping at the bit to bite into 40% shooting percentage to pay 17.7 for Caulfield, Suzuki, Doc. But I'll keep an eye on ownership because obviously, if that's going to be 2% owned against the Flames at home as an underdog, I'll just be like, you know what, Nick Suzuki's actually been pretty good. I should note some of this expected fantasy point production is primary assists, and if Cole Caulfield stops shooting 40%, then Nick Suzuki's primary assists will go way down. But he has been shooting the puck a little bit better than like his historical norm, so that's inspiring. And then obviously Kirby Doc is pretty inexpensive as well. But I'm not interested in Matheson. Certainly not playing Lane Hudson or any of the other punts here because they don't really come together in a nice way that I think makes sense to get value on. So let's move on to Philly at Carolina. What's up, Tim? Thank you. Sup, people, getting the early read on the slate. Thanks, guys. You are very welcome. DJ, what do we have for it? Philly at Carolina.
Unsurprisingly, it's just 6 total. And very, 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 very heavily favored in the way of Carolina. Forcing that total up minus 285 is, I do believe without a doubt, the highest money line spread. Whatever, the Carolina is a heavy, heavy favorite here. Philadelphia not been great for a little bit. I don't know. I think at the end of it, again, you already mentioned it. If anyone caught on earlier, but like Svechnikov has been otherworldly, just on a heater too to go along with it. Like he was super duper good and not getting rewarded, and now he's incredibly super good still and getting rewarded. He's 7,300. People are going to look at that pretty closely. Tough to stack now because it's not what it used to be in price, but this just to me feels like a spot that I'm just going to fade. We were just getting Svechnikov at 5,300, and I was like, Uber jam all the way in. He's gone up 2K in like a week, and I'm not saying it's not warranted. It is, but you just can't afford it on this slate in a matchup I don't love. Like I know Philly's bad, but they're bad in a not fun way.
I was waiting for you.
I think I'm out.
I was waiting for you to loop around to actually talk about the Flyers that are on the screen here, but I can't argue with anything you're saying. I'll just note that Tippett, Frost, Konechny were united as a line in practice. That's going to be power play 1 correlated. Now it's basically the same price as Montreal one. So like, are you really doing that against Carolina? I don't think so. But of course, Tippett and Konechny are 2 of the best fantasy producers in the league. Over the last couple seasons. And Morgan Frost, of course, is a player who we've seen before this year, at least, be productive offensively. he just can't buy a goal. So yeah, I'll just note that. But moving on, because there's really nothing else punts wise that stands out.
I think
To Carolina,
it's a good, good thing to store away for later. Keep an eye on Connecty Tippett, because as Mark's pointing out, it's like Tippett doesn't get the run always, and when he's with Connecting, he does. I don't think it matters against Carolina. I mean, they're on another planet. It just it's just you're getting unique for the sake of getting unique, and you're not adding any value. And again, like I think people get that much. Hockey's different than all the other sports, but like, sometimes you look at a football slate and you're like, well, why would that no one's going to own this one team? And it felt like people would still like try to galaxy brain. Like, people do that. They don't do that in football. They're like, oh, obviously this team will never get it done because they're playing against this defense. And in hockey, people are like, don't get that. And it's like, yeah, you don't need to do it. I just made no sense. Don't play the Flyers. Let's get to Carolina.
I'm really glad that when I switch from one team to another, you just immediately start talking about the team I switched away from. Yeah, Carolina. You mentioned Svechnikov. He's been awesome. Aho's also been quite good. Both these guys are pretty dramatically underproducing their actuals. Now, these are 10-game trends. I think Carolina's the one team that finally played 10 games, which, by the way, means I can convert my projection sheet, or not projection, I don't know why I call it proj sheet, but it's the index sheet. And I can convert everything to 10-game trends. So hooray to us for that. And of course, Carolina, top of the board by a considerable amount. It's worth noting, though, that their goals for at 5-on-5 pretty much match their expected goals. And that's pretty scary because, the Corsi Canes don't often do that. They're doing that right now. These guys are owed a little bit better luck. Guys like Nachos, maybe they're outproducing, what they're doing, but obviously the talent on Nachos is undeniable. So yeah, you could see some of the production move from an Eric Robinson, Jesperi Kokaniemi line to a Svechnikov Aho line, which, I think to me makes sense. I believe Nachos has been on the ice for like 60% of their team's goals this season, which of course includes power play, but like still, that's a ridiculous figure. And so, yeah, the top line's probably owed a little bit more than what they've done. And that's a concern given they're on a heater, like you mentioned. Otherwise, I don't think you need to dip down into Seth Jarvis. Like, yeah, he could get an empty netter. He could get a power play, type production, but 5,700 just feels kind of gross. And Gostisbehere properly priced now at 5,300. The minutes just haven't really come around for him. So I'm pretty happy to fade that. So yeah, top line or nothing for Carolina for me.
Yep, the Marty party's cool. Right. The Hurricanes are another planet. It's just annoying. We can move on. I'm not going to play this game.
Yeah, come on, Olaf. Who can stop Winnipeg? We'll get there. We'll get there, buddy. Which, by the way, we won't get there on this slate, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
I was going to say Utah probably not, but Pittsburgh and the Islanders. What happens when the most boring team in the NHL without Matt Barzal plays a very weird Pittsburgh team? I don't even know what to call Pittsburgh. They're incredibly odd. Well, people don't play this game, and I don't blame them. Probably 6 over under minus 115 on that over. So one of our lower totals. Islanders minus 142. So Pittsburgh, not a high implied team total at all to be expected, I guess. They have very little secondary scoring. You have them up right now. So I guess 1, 2, 3. Are you playing Crosby, Raquel, Malkin or not?
I do like it a lot. That line is obviously very good. Raquel has been priced up from 4,200 to 5,200. So that's noteworthy. But man, I feel like I was driving the Pittsburgh bus as it was careening off a cliff in their Western Canada trip. And they came home, they put the big guns together, and they got 2 wins out of it. Their defense has been pretty good. They've given up 2 goals to Montreal and Anaheim now. But, it's still positives considering what the team looked like beforehand. What do you have to say?
No, you're just saying the 2 worst defensive teams in hockey they've found a way to score on.
They haven't really scored. I mean, they've given up 2 goals, which is how they won both games. But they've generated
scored.
Sure, but they generated an absolute boatload of chances. primarily
Yes.
against Anaheim, but also against Montreal. I thought they controlled that game from start to finish. So, I mean, anytime you get Malkin and Crosby sharing the ice together, I'm going to pay attention. And when Raquel's still too cheap for his role alongside those two. Again, I'm paying attention. 20.4 for the line stack. You mix in an Eric Carlson who's underpriced at 5,400, or for some reason Matt Grzelcyk is now on the top power play over Letang, which honestly makes me like the other four guys even more because Chris Letang at least has that track record. If your power play is filtering around Matt Grzelcyk getting power play opportunities, like you fucked up. And I do not think that Mike Sullivan is in the business of fucking up. So I got to say, I like Carlson, Malkin, Crosby, Raquel. I might find myself compelled to play it because, yes, the Islanders are boring, but they also stink out loud. Look at these lines.
Yes.
I mean, Jesus, they're now without Adam Pelech. Like, I don't know. How do they recover? It's just a mess. So, yeah. Any thoughts on the Islanders?
Okay. I'll just give my thoughts on the entire game. I am crossing it out. I am not looking at it again. And the thing is because I know the more I look into Pittsburgh, the more I'm going to like them. And everything you're saying is accurate, and you're right on everything you're saying. And this game is going to end like 3-2, and it's not winning you $200,000 on either side. And I get it. Pittsburgh's going to have very low ownership. Both of these teams are kind of uniquely bad in their own way. I just don't think either of them are good in the way that wins you $200,000. Like there's no and the way it happens is obviously, the Crosby or the Malkin game. And we've seen these games, and I just don't see it happening here. Like these are two teams that employ a lot of AHL quality talent. I don't think that either team's going to find a way to take massive advantage of it because there's not a lot. Like it's going to be easy to figure out the line matchups because there's two NHL talent dish lines on each team, and then that's it. Like, oh, there's an advantage we could take of this depth defense. Those defensemen are going to see 12 minutes tops against not Crosby, against not Horvat. Like it just doesn't see. It feels like you're really trying to fit this story around players that I do not think have upside to fill their price. The only conceivably good price play is Raquel. I don't know. It's fine. At 5,200, it's not as good as it once was. It's fine. But that's the only thing that makes me think I could look at Pittsburgh, and I just think I'm not going to do it. It's going to cross it out and forget about it.
Okay, that's fair. I respect your opinion here. The Islanders in practice went to a pretty conventional like line one power play one type setup. They have Anders Lee, Bo Horvat, JG Pajot, and Noah Dobson. The second line, Tiplikov, Nelson, Palmieri with Polak, and then Holmstrom. And then the real kicker, Oliver Wahlstrom gets back into the lineup for the New York Islanders. And they're like, we lost Matt Barzal. We have no prayer of ever scoring a goal. Well, hear me out. What if we took a guy who should score goals and asked him to score goals? And they're like, okay, great. What should we do? And they're like, well, can we play him where JG Pajot is on the top line of Bo Horvat and Anders Lee? They're like, well, no. Okay, can we play him with Hudson Fasching and Kyle McLean? Patrick Waugh's like, you know what? If I give him that power play one job, I'm going to have to put him on that fourth line. So, yes, Oliver Wahlstrom will be the trigger man on the power play one on a unit featuring Noah Dobson with Anders Lee and JG Pajot. I mean, there is nobody there to take a one-timer. Bo Horvat, I guess, is going to be the Brock Nelson on the left flank or on the right flank. I have no idea if he can even take a one-timer. We've only seen him take the baby one-timers from JT Miller and Mark Barzal and the bumper there. So, like, I got to say, Oliver Wahlstrom putting up freaking 17 in 8 minutes of ice time is very much in the cards here. He's minimum salary. I don't hate it if you can't get up to Artturi Lehkonen. But just note with Wahlstrom, you are literally looking at a 7 to 10 minute projection. It's the equivalent of playing a guy who's going to get 3 targets, but you damn know one of them's going to be a 50-yard bomb. Just whether he catches it or not will define your slate. So if Wahlstrom scores,
I feel like
he's a great play.
I feel like you're right on everything you're saying, and it's more of the reason why I'm just crossing this game off because it's just like the Islanders want to be boring and suck. They can't though because they're not good enough to be boring and suck. they're giving up too much shot volume, but I think they'll be able to at least limit the top line in Pittsburgh with how boring and okay their top line is.
Okay. Just will mention Dobson. It's not Ben Hutton, it's Grant Hutton. I was trying to look into that and I couldn't figure it out. But there we go. Grant Hutton. He's a nobody, but it's interesting that Dobson played 25 minutes and Polak played 29 minutes last game. Bolduc got sent to the AHL as a result of that game, so like maybe that's not steady. But I could see one of these two guys being in play as well.
You want the best advice of the night. The best advice of the night that I'm going to give. I'm going to give one piece of advice, and it's be whatever you do tomorrow, at any interval of 30 minutes. So again, let's just pretend you're on the East Coast at 7:30. Figure out which punt defenseman system was played in the Barn Bash, and just go and run and bet them to score. Because I could absolutely 100% see Ryan Polak being on that card. Run. Don't walk, sprint. You have like 6 minutes to get that bet in and bet that player. Okay.
Yeah, this is wow.
This is the guy that he is going to play tomorrow, I bet. Or if it's not, it's going to be someone. I don't know who it is. It might be, if Mike Riley back, got concussed, I know, against Buffalo. I don't think he's.
I didn't see it. I don't believe he practiced today. So yeah,
I don't think he's in. But again, like this Islanders team is seeping with potential Sissima Jam goal potential, and I would really, I'm going to do it. I will do it, and I will try to remind anyone that if I can, I might just tweet out a random player and say, "Don't ask," and that'll be the guy that I've realized Sissima's played in the Barn Bash at defense for 3,200. Or 3,900 in Pulak's case. We can move on now. I just wanted to give my number one best take of the night.
That is the great take. So Tampa and St. Louis. We do not know the status of Braden Point. They did not practice on Monday. Point left the game with a suspected groin injury after like 6 shifts, did not return. So what we have is how they finished up the game, but I would not be surprised if this changed dramatically. So they finished the game. Hagel, Cirelli, Kucherov, Gensel, Nick Paul, Mitchell Shafee, Michael Eisman, Connor Geeky, and probable AHL call-up. And then their fourth line they've kept of Gergensons, Glendening, and Cam Atkinson. Again, expecting someone to fill that spot if Point isn't there. I'm just not sure who their scratch is at the moment. And yeah, Mitchell Shafee took the power play 1 spot that Point holds. So yeah, that's something. He's 2,500. He sucks, but like he's going to be 2,500 in the point spot on the power play of Nikita Kucherov. Hard to turn that down, I think, at least as an option to look at.
I was optimistic it'd be geeky, but I don't think we're going to get quite so lucky. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, we talked about Jason Zucker to start the slate, and you're like, these cheap power play 1 guys don't grow on trees. And then we continued to just mention 4 guys that fell off a tree. And this is just one of them. It almost sounds like a tree. Like Chiefy, or what the heck's his name? Chaffee? Yeah. Sounds like a Chaffee tree. I don't know. You could see, I could see that existing somewhere in the wild. You're in a safari. Like, oh, those are the Chaffee trees. The Lions love those. He fell off a tree. Here he is. He's not good. Doesn't really show much to make you think he's DFS relevant, but he's almost the opposite. Like, he's going to get run. Like, he's going to see 16, 17 minutes probably in this situation. And while Wahlstrom is a much better bet for upside, time matters quite a bit in daily fantasy output, obviously. So it's not that far off, really. I do think that he'll get more ownership just because people will conceivably assume that he's better. When I don't know if that's the case. I don't think it'll be a ton of, like, it's not going to, break the slate ownership, but this is a guy that has, let's look. What is his, I can't even find him. How many shot attempts per game? 1.67 shot attempts per game through 12 games. Not a lot.
No. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. It's at least interesting. I want to see more. They're going to do a morning skate, I reckon, and we'll probably learn more about the status of Braden Point then. But that's how he did it, and it's against St. Louis, so at least got to point it out. And yeah, Connor Geeky would be a lot of fun. He looks like a power forward which is sort of
Yep.
fun because this team desperately needs one of those, in my opinion, to go alongside with like the Jake Gensels of the world, who just they're good down low, but they're not really like the ferocious type players. And Geeky hasn't done a ton, but he does kind of look like a really fun sort of I guess he plays with flair. The hair helps
Yep.
for sure, but if he gets a better role, I think that could be a clear win too for fantasy purposes. On the St. Louis side, any interest in this St. Louis team? Without Philip Broberg, their Norris contending
Yeah.
defenseman, by the
Broberg.
way.
That's a good way to put it. No. I have a lot more interest in Tampa. I could see one-offing or bringing it back with like a Kyber or something, a guy that's just not meeting his expectation almost at all. Falk has come back down. I don't think it's even necessary. Like, I love the idea of playing Kucherov, Hagel, and just moving on. And like maybe if I could find a way to get Victor Hedman in, don't know if I will. I think he has upside to definitely be in contention. And again, I could see a scenario where I take a really good hard look at like, could Kyrou keep it relevant? Tampa's not been that great defensively. If they lose Braden Point, I'm not sure if it makes a massive difference, but it's kind of like, all right, so what does this game look like now? How are they going to try to attack the other way? They have the home advantage. I think they can try to take advantage of some of these bottom lines in Tampa that aren't very good with the Holloway, Shen, Kyrou line. And that line seems pretty tailor-made to allow Kyrou to get the shot bonus. And if he scores, could be relevant in DFS. So I like that idea of that 3-man. Didn't mention it, but I guess I will now because I'm talking. It's a 6 over under minus 118. Tampa's a minus 166. Not crazy. Don't think it's going to be the most interest in the world. People keep an eye on Braden Point. Hagel's come up in price, but he's been absolutely everything you could want and more. 14 points in 12 games, and a lot of them have come as of late. So yeah, I am intrigued in some capacity because again, like Tampa's very exploitable already with their depth. It's not been very good defensively, and if they lose Braden Point, there's going to be guys that weren't even playing in that depth that are now going to step in, let alone who's already there and
Yeah.
wasn't doing well. So
Um,
it's interesting. What are your thoughts?
In terms of matchup, the Corsi that these two teams have generated between each other, so like the Corsi pace matchup, if you will, the only game worse on this slate is LA Minnesota coming up next. So like, and that makes sense. I mean, Tampa's a team that thrives on efficiency. They have for Kucherov's entire career, pretty much. They're not going to be a total volume monsters. So certainly like mini stacking more than overstacking here. I don't see myself touching this game much at all, honestly. Just without Broberg, it's just more defensive guys sort of being put in there to just shut it down. And we know this Blues team; they're not overly fun. And so if the Corsi matchup with everything, I'm just sort of like I'll take my shots on Matthews and McKinnon if I want to spend up for some studs.
That's fair.
But let's keep it moving. We're almost at the hour mark with a handful of games left still. So LA and Minnesota. LA is currently up 1-0 in Nashville. This was how they started the game. Only real thing of relevance is Mikey Anderson and Jordan Spence as a pair rather than Gavrikov. Not a huge deal for fantasy, of course. But yeah, other than that, I don't really think there's much here to talk about. It's LA on a back-to-back heading into Minnesota, where Minnesota's been probably the best defensive team in the league so far this year. So any interest in the LA Kings here?
No, not really. The Clark experiment has gone swimmingly. You could pat yourself on the back a couple times. He just looks every bit the part, but the price is reflecting it now. 5,200. The roles
Still a
there,
discount.
points are there. I don't think it's not overpriced, but I don't really think he's gonna break the slate without bringing a couple guys, at least one guy along. You paying these prices? I'm not. So yeah, unfortunately, it's not going to be going in on that. We can look at the other side unless there's anything you want to mention.
Nope.
Revenge
We
spot
can.
for Kevin Fiala.
Oh, there you go. We're getting spicy. Yeah, sure.
Now let's get spicy.
Yeah. Anyway, the only other things I think of relevance are on the wild side, and that's pretty much as we're expecting. The one thing is
good.
Yeah, believe it or not, Kirill Kaprizov is really good. Just some
Hard.
minor tweaks on the third line. Hartman and Gaudreau are together. They're 7,200. They both profile okay. And yeah, they're both power play too. So I don't know. That's all I noticed here. Otherwise, of course, Kaprizov, Boldy, Zuccarello, Eriksson Ek's been pretty non-existent. I don't know if you have anything further on that, but just don't play Brock
Yeah.
Faber. And yeah, you got it. We're good.
Yeah, I don't really know what it is. It kind of just feels like the Joel Eriksson boldly thing doesn't exactly fit. And they just won't ever leave it. I don't know. It's fine. On the right slate. This is not the right slate or the right price. So, and they're both good, but I don't really know why they're like. It just feels like Eriksson would be better suited with Kaprizov and Zuccarello, but maybe they just don't trust Boldly yet. All on I don't know I'm not their head coach yet. Working my way into that role as we speak, but yeah, it seems unnecessary here. Kaprizov is always in consideration, especially against a back-to-back team. As you mentioned, the game doesn't profile very well, but it is a 6.5. Minnesota, pretty big favorite. So
That's
I don't know,
really
worth
weird.
considering.
Yeah.
I was a bit surprised. I mean, it's plus 105. It's not like it's to the moon and back on it, but yeah, I mean, there's normally Vegas doesn't get this too wrong. It might drop, might end up being a 6 by the time you're listening to this tomorrow. Could be. I just think yeah, I like the under there. If you want to bet it right now, go right ahead. Feel free. I don't know. Not my favorite spot. I think the LA Kings were one of the more underappreciated teams going into the season, and I think the only other team I'd rival them with is Minnesota. Like those were the two teams that I feel like we were both banging the drum for, being like these are good hockey teams. Like they should be solid, and there's no reason to fade them. And we've been proven largely correct. But what makes them both good is I don't think what you're trying to play into on this slate. So yeah, I think I'm out. But yeah,
just a good opportunity to pat ourselves on the back and keep it moving to Utah and Winnipeg. Utah, we don't know what they're going to do, if they're going to go 11-7 again. They've been going 11-7 pretty regularly, though against Winnipeg, in Winnipeg, I don't really think it matters. You just shouldn't be playing these guys anyway. But keep an eye on that, because obviously, Carconi could come out and it would go Olimata or Valimaki. Anything on the Utah side stand out to you?
I mean, Winnipeg's really good. It's tough. I do think this Utah team is actually a bit better than maybe meets the eye. It's not, world earth shattering, but I do think they're a fine team. It's not what I'd love to stack against, is probably the way I'd put it. But yeah, I think that like the top line with Hayton Schmaltz and Michelli is at least interesting. It's a really tough slate to do it, but you're probably going to have to find savings. Michelli at 3,400 at least makes me think. The minutes have been really, really good. He does have the risk of a zero. His price at 3,400, like I said, it's a good price, and it's right where Lehkonen is. I'm not saying to play, him over Lehkonen as much as if you're playing Lehkonen, McKinnon, Rantanen, you need some punts. I don't hate finding it here because no one's going to play it. And furthermore, no one's going to be one-offing against Michelli. So I think it's actually a really good line, though. Again, it's just tough to actually look at this Winnipeg team and say, let's, this is exploitable. This is a.
I'm far more interested in it in like a turbo slate than I am on the main slate. But yeah, I've been on the Michelli train for the last few games with this Michelli, Hayton Schmaltz line. I just straight up like it better than Cooley, Keller, Gunther.
I think what we've learned is that Hayton is pretty legitimately good. Seems to just produce quite a bit of expected goals when he's on the ice. That's just not a secret anymore. They're just, again, not finding all those goals. And if it does happen, you could be looking at a really nice situation. But yeah, it's unnecessary, but it's a no. We can move over to Winnipeg. It's finally, as I've said for years and years and years, Nikolai Ehlers is going to get there. This year, I don't go all the way in again and giga jam it. I get some because I'm a coward. And it's Nikolai Ehlers' year. They finally figured out if you just put this guy in the first power play and let him play, he can produce in spades. And is he going to get 47 like he did against Columbus? Probably not. I like Kitties for being serious on this show. We're obviously not playing Brock Faber at 4,400. Thank you for offering, but
the dude doesn't shoot. He doesn't block shots. He hardly gets points. where do the fantasy points come from? I don't understand. Let's just
So Brock Faber guaranteed 3-point night now. Thank you, Matt.
on the year, Brock Faber has 3.1 attempts per game. He has 2 goals, 4 assists, and he has 12 block is that 7 block shots or 12? Let's see. I gotta scroll way up to get to where these headers are. Yeah, he has okay. Let me find him again because I'm an idiot. He has 7 block shots in his last 10 games. He doesn't do anything. Where do you find the fantasy points, sir? Like, I just don't get it. And he's gonna be owned. He gets owned every single slate. He's like 8% owned every night.
It really just feels like a situation where, like, you know, like, and I watch Brock Faber too. I'm like, he seems good. I really don't know what happened.
He's a really good player.
He's good. But if you're watching it from a fantasy lens, I don't see what he really does either.
We don't play Hampus Lindholm on the Anaheim Ducks for 5 years because he's really good. Like, that's what he is. He's Hampus Lindholm, just younger. And because he's younger, like, there's nothing in his profile. I mean, like, I literally show it here. He has nothing in his profile to show he's an offensive player. And he ran super hot getting secondary assists last year. And it happened for him. Guess what? It's not projectable into the future. So just stop it. Well, let's get serious here and keep talking about Winnipeg, a very serious hockey club that is not shooting 1,000,000,000% and kind of struggling to generate offense besides their red hot shooting.
No, I mean, that's kind of the Ehlers thing is going to have to, it can't last forever. I'm enjoying it while it lasts, but I don't know. I can't in good conscience play 8,200 Kyle Connor with everything going on. On the same token, I do feel like that Winnipeg one is not going to get a lot of ownership, and Gabe Belardi does make it interesting with his price tag still at 4,500 and starting to put it together, which is feeling pretty good. I'm going to be considering Winnipeg one out of respect. I don't know if it's going to end up making its way into my lineup. There's probably 2 or 3 spots that we haven't gotten to yet that I like quite a bit as well, and 3 games left. I don't know if it's quite going to crack the code, but I just don't know how much it's going to get onto it. And I do think Kyle Connor could break the slate pretty easily. But again, I do think at the end of the day, I just respect this Utah team enough to say, I don't know. 5,500 dealers will garner ownership. He's just, again, like you're saying, he's shooting at an absolutely egregious percent. The volume has not been what it used to be, but alas, he's shooting at 25%, and that's going to get you there. I do agree with, Olaf here. Perfetti is a big help there. Like, he's genuinely very good at hockey. I think if you're playing it, you probably put them together. I'm just not. Like, there's just no sense in continuing to chase what's already happened. That should not continue.
Yeah. I mean, at 5-on-5, the Ehlers line is getting, 47% of the shot attempts, 40% of the expected goals, and 70% of the expected or of the actual goals. And that's because they're shooting 14% with Perfetti on the ice. Like, that's just, it happens. Like, they're good players. I understand it.
Mm-hmm.
But now they're, it's for that twosome, it's 9,500. It's not 7K,
I mean,
like it might have been.
Yeah, the only thing I'd say again, don't completely take what Matt just said as like gospel or as a bad look. I mean, they're 11-1, so they've led in a lot of games, and score effects will cause a little bit of that in some respect, but also note that, like, it is not sustainable what they're doing. It's not that those numbers are, again, perfect, but I think I'm going Winnipeg 1 or nothing. Like, I'm just going all the way in on that top line, or I'm not playing it at all, and that's fine.
Yep. Seattle and Colorado. Seattle just
Yep.
They just continue to tinker. I don't know why. Rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, seems like, but Short, Stevenson, Burakovsky are the Montour power play line, and they come in at a whopping 9,100 for those 3 players. That's going to get projection jammed just because 9,100 for 3 guys who play on the nominal power play one. Now, is Shane Wright a power play 1 guy?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Will Brandon Montour just wake up and decide he wants to play with the McCann, Beniers, Eberle line on the power play some days? Sure will. But this is what we have, so there you go. I have no interest in this spot. The entire team is just a a revolving door of madness. And they're going against Colorado, who, yes, they continue to just take hit after hit after hit, but they do
Mhm.
get Arturi Lehkonen back. They have Devon Toews in the lineup. Their depth is not as jarring, I think, as you might suspect. It's not good,
Yep.
but at least Middlestat, O'Connor, Kiviranta is like a competent defensive line. So, like,
Yep.
are you going to play third line Seattle? I just don't think so. So, yeah, I have no interest in Seattle. What about you?
No, I mean, yeah, it's certainly is this depth bad enough? And it's just, I don't know. I could see a scenario where you take a look at McCann, but it's just like, I'm playing it through Montour, and if I'm not playing it through the power play, it's what's the point? Like,
Yeah.
I would really where that bad depth is going to get exposed is taking penalties, and so like I'm not going to do it. I do think it, and at the end
Yeah.
of the day, what it comes down to is what is that ownership going to look like for Seattle? I think it's going to be higher than it should be, and I just am not going to do
Yep.
it. People are going to say
If
like
we,
not only is it going to be projectively jammed, but like it just like logically makes sense of like the
yeah.
Lehkonen and McKinnon, and they're all getting there. The other side you can fit perfectly. This game goes for 9. Well, what if this game sucks? And like I'd rather focus on that. I'm not saying not to play Colorado. We can get to it when you're ready, but
the
I'd rather, yeah.
Yeah, the where Seattle would become interesting is, Beniers is going to get McKinnon or Stevenson is going to get McKinnon and the other is going to get Middlestat. If we had any sort of power play correlation down here, if Tolvin and Gord
Yep.
Bjorkstrand was power play 2 correlated, which only Tolvinen's on a power play unit to begin with right now,
Just
then I would
insane.
consider it. But just I don't think you can do it without the power play correlations.
Yep.
So I'm just not interested. On the Colorado side, there's a good bit to discuss beyond just Lehkonen being back. Middlestat is up at 5,900, but is now alongside Logan O'Connor and Joel Kiviranta. That line is a combined 11.2. If you think Chandler Stevenson sucks, it's going to be a pretty cheap way to directly pivot off of Colorado. You could even play Kel McCarr with it. Obviously, the 5-on-5 is kind of going to hurt because that's mostly what McKinnon McCarr is. But like the power play with Middlestat, if Middlestat gets there and McKinnon Rantanen combined for only 30, I mean, that's still points that Middlestat and McCarr could get upwards of, 30, 35, 40 themselves. And you're sort of looking at some decent leverage. Kiviranta and O'Connor are going to have to play a bunch because the bottom 6 is Kovalenko, Kelly, Ivan, Tynan, Wagner, and Prishchipov guy, which is really interesting. He was a
Real player.
2024 draft pick. He was an overager, and so he played in the queue last year. Wasn't all that good. He got drafted pretty late, 217 overall. But he has 4 points in 6 AHL games and got the call. So like, he's not a DFS play, but it's really interesting that a guy who got drafted this year is already playing. Where I believe Celebrini is the only draft pick besides Jet Luchenko who's debuted in the NHL already. So just classic Colorado stuff. They're so injured that they're literally calling up their 2024 draft class to come play for them. Just goes to show that Kiviranta and O'Connor seem to be locked in. And like, yeah, I don't like it, but like if you're trying to get different, that's what you could do, and it makes sense. But yeah, Lehkonen, McKinnon, Rantanen. Anything to add to the discourse here?
Not a lot. I mean, it makes like everything you're saying too. It's like it makes so much sense to really play any of the main 5 that top power play. I even think people will, and I hope I'm not one of them. We'll take a good look at Devon Toews. Guy doesn't really shoot. He's basically worse Brock Faber if there is such a thing. But God, it's just so frustrating to look at this and be like, man, everything about this, the whole thing, you can probably play it. It's so good. And then just to be like every single person's doing this on the biggest slate of the year, and to actually click it in. I don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to be highly owned. I don't know what. I think that the condition I'm setting on myself is like play Cale Makar though. This guy is on another world, like at 8,500. I just think he's going to be the guy people keep out. They're going to punt defense, plenty of ways to do it. And they're going to kind of keep him off the list. No one's keeping McKinnon off that list. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, McKinnon, Lehkonen are probably conditions that people are going to make. And I don't know if
I'm showing Russian from Marco. I have no idea what I'm showing here, but thank you for taking the effort to.
Probably
Write
his name
us.
in Russian, the guy you were talking about, that Nikita, whatever. That's my guess.
Very well could be. Or it could be
If
some
I'm-
absolute propaganda.
and
Who
now,
is to say?
yeah, see, I'm right and you're wrong. See, I know Russian. I could just tell. You buffoon, you absolute buffoon.
All right, we are
What
careening.
can I ask?
Oh, okay.
Can I
Okay,
ask the
sure.
hardest question of all? This is the
Oh
hardest
god.
question of the entire night. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Let's say you fade Colorado. You played a quarter now.
Let's see. 7,200. I'm gonna say no. Just
Okay, that's fine.
if the Colorado fade is like when you play Decord, you're like, yeah, they get 45 shots or whatever, and you're it's just
Right.
like if they get anywhere close to a Decord game, like Lehkonen at least is gonna have 4 or 5 shots, I think, and it's just really
Oh,
hard to thread that needle.
so
Um,
Sissama's going to have Lekanen plus McKinnon plus the Cord
that sounds about right, and plus Devontae's.
plus Devontae's and Devontae scores. There it is.
Yeah,
And
precisely.
and then yep. We've solved Sissama's lineup. He's listening to this. He's shaking his little fist in the air right now, or big fist. I don't know how big his fists are. And just saying, darn,
Oh,
they've solved it.
I have personal experience, and I can tell you they don't
Oh
feel great.
god. Anyways. Oh no, boy, we need to cut that and put that on the intro like a real show would do. But yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
yeah. We can move on to a spot that I really like, a
Look,
spot that I'm probably gonna end up on if you're ready.
yeah, yeah. I'm just gonna say it. Colorado one is the best stack on the night. Lekanen is
Yeah, yeah,
3,000 underpriced, and that makes this
yes,
line imminently attackable. If you want to get cute with it, go ahead, but just know that I know
yep,
we sort of do this podcast assuming that most people are like experts in our field, and sometimes that's not true. Colorado one is the best play on the night. Just got to make a
yep.
decision of how to play it, what to play with it, so on and so forth. If you do play it.
Yeah.
All
And,
right.
and again, but again, on the other hand, if it fails, what does it look like? And I think you're kind. I think honestly, I was gonna say I agree. Like it doesn't automatically mean Decord is optimal. Like you've
Yeah.
already gotten unique. You don't need to do that if you don't have to. There's plenty of goalies that should project better. The depth is not going to do much. Seattle is a pretty boring team. It's unnecessary. That was the point I was looking for. You already made it. I guess you're right. We probably on this slate, this big slate, we should probably be a little bit more
Okay.
explanatory. But yeah, Vancouver, I think is in equally as good of a spot as you could be. Anaheim, could you pull up the 5 game or whatever the chart? I have to assume Anaheim has gotten
Uh,
worse and worse and worse.
sorry, I'm looking at this right now, just real quick. You see
Yeah, pull that
Vancouver,
up first. Pull that up
Vancouver
first.
at number 3 behind Carolina, Columbus based on their matchups. Vancouver based on the Anaheim matchup. Colorado against Seattle based on their matchup is number 4. So yeah, right in line. Vancouver, Colorado. I do have that chart though. Just a second. Let's see. This is defense. Anaheim's defense. It's hanging out in the very bad category right now.
Yeah, and
Um,
that's what I was kind of thinking. That was my read on it as well. It's like I don't know. Again, this is a situation where I also think that the JT Miller,
yeah,
Brock Besser, Quinn Hughes stack is a bit underpriced. It's
yeah.
not anything I'm going to lose
Look,
sleep over, but it's good. Yeah, sure. What you sure?
I was just gonna say the Anaheim pace has been good all year. Obviously, looks like
Yep.
their defense, but like they're doing enough to keep games interesting. And Quinn
Yes.
Hughes has been completely ridiculous. I mean,
It's out of
he
control.
basically he went from in the span of 2 years from like Adam Fox into like a I don't know a mid range. God, I can't even think of a good comp. But now he's basically just Kale McCarr and Roman Yossi, and he's 6,800 against Anaheim with really cheap
Yeah.
teammates to play as well. So like, I don't even think you need to
yeah,
super stack, but you can play Miller,
you
Besser,
could.
Garland, Hughes. If you want to play Pedersen, fine. Like it looks really good, I think, and I don't think it'll get piled on either because Quinn Hughes is expensive enough to where it's like it makes you think. But if this is who the new Quinn Hughes is, it's better than any Quinn Hughes we've ever seen by a country mile. So just noting that
Yeah.
because we've long been kind of skeptical of Quinn Hughes.
Yeah. I mean, Dostal can't do it forever. They truly don't have another goalie that can play. So maybe he's back in again. I almost hope he is. And I'm going to still just jam Vancouver because no matter how good Dostal is, which again, I was absolutely banging the table. Like this is my highest owned goalie in best puck. I love him. I thought the world of him. He's not a 940 goalie. Almost no one is, especially with how much Anaheim has been just bad. And you might be thinking, oh, well, so he must be winning them games. Like he is single-handedly winning them games, but like even in games they're losing, he's seeing 40 plus shots.
Yeah.
This is a situation that I think is kind of unique in a sense. So my favorite stack of the night, and again, like you said, the best stack of the night is going to be Colorado. My favorite's going to be Vancouver. I don't think you have to be cute with it and say, finally, Pettersson's going to arrive. He might. I don't think it's necessary to do because Hughes, Besser and Miller are just feeling cheap. Besser is still almost a point a game. Quinn Hughes about a point a game. None of them have really exploded. And again, I think people will stay away if those balls in net.
DeBrusk got the monkey off his back, scoring against San Jose. The role has dissipated for him. He went from power play into power play 2, of course, but with Miller and Besser, he's 3,300. That full line stack is 15.7.
Yep.
I would guess that gets some ownership, but with
bit,
Vancouver 2 being 13K, like obviously Pius Suter's not as fun, but people like Elias Pettersson. So I think it'll kind of converge on each other there. And adding Quinn Hughes to that stack, I think is a must. And I honestly don't think the field will see it that way. So I don't worry about ownership at all with Vancouver, even if they do get into the 10-ish% range on Miller Besser stuff. Anything else here?
I guess Garland's with Elias Pettersson. If you're doing Pettersson, you're probably doing Garland. He's been better than Pettersson, and that's the way. But no worries if you don't. I wouldn't blame you. Anaheim, it feels like just one of these days, Cutter Gauthier is going to score a double hat trick. He's just going to score 6. I like
it's preposterous. I mean,
like, when you watch him
Jesus.
too, it feels like it's not that far off. Like again, he flubs a power play shot here or there, misses, kind of in tight, trying to make something happen. But man, the guy had 2 shots on goal on 12 attempts, and you feel bad. You honestly just feel bad because he's everywhere. And Zegras has looked, I think, fine playing alongside him. The line isn't great. Killorn kind of looks a little bit lost with the other two, but yeah, just sad.
Cutter Gauthier has as many shot attempts on the year as Andrei Svechnikov.
Yeah.
It's just not
directionally accurate. As always, this is the one that like I keep looking at my exposure and I'm just like, this is unfair. He had a double bonus against Pittsburgh and an assist and then 22, and it feels like no one even talked about it because it's just like, you have scored. Who cares?
Yep.
God.
The line's been good. It's 11K. If you need a filler, that's definitely one you can do. Vetrano McTavish Terry is getting more attention than I would like on recent slates.
Yeah.
This slate, I doubt it gets much, but they're at home against Vancouver. Maybe that matters. But for 14.1, keep an eye on it. If they get no ownership, of course, I'm interested with Olin Zellweger. But yeah, that's neither here nor there. It's not like Vancouver's a daunting matchup at this point, but they're also not easily targetable one either. So anything else to say?
No, I mean, Vancouver's fine defensively. Lankinen has really saved this team from being pretty bad. Slovis, I don't know if he wasn't ready or what,
very
but
low
he is
pace
just
too.
But yeah, they haven't been allowing for much again, so it's tough play. Final game of the night, if you're ready. And I guess along the way here, we haven't seen too much in the high totals. The Colorado game's a 6.5. This is a 6. Final game of the night also a 6.5 plus 100. The Blue Jackets minus 135 favorites on the road. If you would have told me they're going to be favorites on the road, it's San Jose. Never mind. All checks out to me. Yeah, no, this is a very fine to almost kind of okay team.
San Jose gets back Celebrini, by the way. That's
we're gonna
noteworthy.
The first time I don't jump the gun on something and I try to stick to your sheet, and you have to jump the gun on yourself and change the sheet. So Columbus The Blue Jackets are now priced up against San Jose.
You were cooking. Keep cooking. You were talking.
They're not cheap anymore, as indicated by the pricing going up. Are you interested in playing any of this Blue Jackets against the worst team potentially in the NHL?
No.
Good. Me either. Perfect.
I reserve the right to go back on that, but 18.1 for this top line does not make it move. Michael Gramlin sticking on that top line does not make it move for me. He's just a very competent player. So like Celebrini, Toffoli, yeah, they could be fun. Granlund just doesn't seem like there's a possibility of chaos. Jake Wallman and Cody Ceci have been very good, a testament to how good Jake Wallman is. So yeah, I don't see any reason to dip down to Fantilli Sillinger stuff or Voronkov Danforth. Like, I don't see it personally.
No, I agree. I mean, if you're playing Columbus and you didn't click on Zach Werenski, I think you've done it wrong. People aren't going to click on Zach Werenski at his pretty egregious price at 7,800. Just it's too much. I mean, I just think it's unnecessary. And there's, Wallman not in the first power play. I think we're expecting it to be Timothy Liljegren. Minimum salary, not quite, 2,800. My bad. You could, I guess you could.
What? In his first game, he played 17 minutes, had a 1 shot and 1 block. Not really much inspiring there from Liljegren.
Yeah, I think you could do worse. And the only thing I'll say is like we were, Jack Thompson. We were like, oh yeah, like he's shooting, and it's like Liljegren has done that in the past, and maybe give him a game or two. But like if you clicked on Celebrini and Liljegren as a 2-man. I wouldn't say you were that stupid. I'd say, probably better plays on the slate, but like you do you, but like it's an option that exists in a vacuum.
Yeah.
As the slate, which is what we're doing.
Let's see. The San Jose top line, are they both centers? I would assume yes.
Yes, they are. Correct.
I kind of like that. There's a lot of wing plays, obviously like Lehkonen, and we've talked about a lot of guys. I honestly don't hate the idea of a San Jose 1 stack. It comes in at 16,000. Celebrini Toffoli is certainly a duo that we were trying to target early in the year. Obviously, Toffoli's price has risen from opening night, where he was 4,500 or maybe 48 or whatever it was. But it's still not too crazy. And again, Michael Gramlin is a very good player, so you could even leave him off and just stay cheap. Celebrini, Toffoli, Liljegren, or something of that ilk, or even Eklund. I think San Jose is where I would go in this game as opposed to Columbus. But I'm not like racing out to get shares of this game, to be honest. I'll be honest.
No,
DJ, I straight up prefer Pittsburgh, the Islanders, to Columbus, San Jose.
I don't know if I go that far, but it's fair. So why don't we talk about our top stacks? And again, I know I saw it. We just don't worry about Slovis. He's not even around anymore. So we're gonna again just say it one more time that nobody is saying that Colorado is a bad stack, but we're not gonna. I'm not gonna use them in my top stacks. It just kind of feels like, what's the point? Like everyone's gonna say, oh, Colorado, good stack. Makes sense. One of the highest implied team totals, all of the correlation and all of the by that exposure, all of the production is going to come through this and this and that and this and that, and then great stack. Matt, if you say Pittsburgh's your top stack of the night, I'm going to kill you. But Matt, what's your top stack of the night?
Why don't you go first? Because I feel like I might take yours.
It's at JT Miller, Brock Besser, Quinn Hughes.
I was going to go there. So yeah.
Wow. We double endorsement on the Miller, and you know what? You were asking for a wing D spot to fill out your lineup. I think you could just do Besser and Quinn Hughes. I think that's fine, but I would throw JT Miller in there if you had it in you.
I'm sure he has that much salary left if he's staring at 2 spots left. He's like, I played St. Louis 4 and Seattle 3.
Exactly.
And I'm right back in it with that.
Right back in the mix now. You're welcome. I fixed your lineup. Well, he didn't give us any constraints on what the price was. Actually, if you have, I would say Rantanen in the car is pretty good. if you're just sitting there with a wing D. Okay, Matt, when you're ready.
God. Yeah, what is there? I don't even know. What's on this slate? I'm gonna go Toronto.
Hey,
Let's say, hmm. Yeah, let's just be slappies. Let's just do Nyes, Matthews, and Marner. I think there's more to Nyes' game than just a, shot only puck retriever type guy. So I'll give him a chance before I rule him out at whatever the 19.9, a sub 20K Toronto line against this just crumbling Boston team that's relying on Tyler Johnson to solve all their problems in the year 2024. So yeah, give me Toronto one.
I mean, my other stack, I'm gonna go with the Flames. I don't know what it's gonna look like, obviously, and it kind of feels like it's pretty in the air. They didn't practice on Monday, so we're gonna have to keep an eye on it for Tuesday. I'm just gonna say Kadri, Sharangovich, and Uyghur. But of course, if it is Huberdeau with Sharangovich and Uyghur, that's fine. I don't know. The price maybe isn't quite reflecting that Huberdeau has been okay. I do think Kadri's been actually good and might be, I'm not going to say a discount, but 6,100. I think he's incredibly fairly priced. The problem with Kadri is the production hasn't met his actuals at all, and they've paired him with guys that just aren't very good at fantasy production. So I'm optimistic. Like, I guess the point I'm making here is like Kadri is not a good play without a Sharangovich Kuzmenko situation. Like Kuzmenko doesn't lift him up. Hospitals doesn't lift him up. I think he needs a guy like Sharangovich to make it work. So, yeah.
I was gonna ask who are they trading for before Tuesday night at 7 p.m. to have him play with, but okay, if you're counting those guys as good players, then so be it.
Well, that's why you just don't play him though. Like you just play Sharangovich. Tell me Sharangovich is not a good $4,100 play if he's with Kadri and Kuzmenko. Tell me that. I want you to tell me.
You are talking about guys who elevate Nazem Kadri, and I just don't think there are any of those on this roster. Besides Huberdeau, who obviously we haven't seen it in a while, but he can theoretically elevate
that
players.
could be the most fun. If it's Huberdeau, Sharangovich, and Kadri, that actually might be the most fun way. And then you don't have to worry about Uyghur. That might be actually the stone cold best option for that to get there. Okay. You're right. We've solved it. Called up. Is it what Heiska is his name? What's his name again?
What?
The coach?
Oh, Ryan Huska.
Huska. Call him up.
Adam?
Let him know that we fixed the first line.
I don't know. Huska, whatever his name is.
I think it's Ryan. I think you're right.
Yeah. Okay. Gosh. You told me I couldn't. Yeah, you told me I couldn't take Pittsburgh though, so I've been scrambling.
You can do whatever you want. I mean, it's fine. But like,
no, I'm gonna go San Jose. Screw it. Like, I mean, if Ben's right here and full transparency, he built around that Vancouver line. Maybe it's just Vancouver and Colorado donkey chalk night. And you know what happens on donkey chalk nights? Ante Kopitar and Michael Gramland win slates. So let's go Michael Gramland, Macklin Celebrini, and Tyler Toffoli. Don't even play a defenseman. It's just worthless. Just use that stack. Play Noah Dobson and Eric Carlson or whatever you want to do. Like play actual fun defensemen. Play Cale Makar. You can fit it. Don't worry about punting D. And yeah, so give me San Jose 1 as top stack. The return of the Mac. By the way, Mark, this hoodie is a Hockey Viz hoodie. It's from his store. I assume it's still up. I got it like 4 years ago, though.
All right. Why don't you give me the first guaranteed goal for you?
Well,
because I went first on the stacks. Are you going to take him the three square?
The first guaranteed goal is Ricardo Cal. 5,200 alongside Malkin and Crosby. I mean, again, I'm very high on this game relative to you, I guess. But Raquel's been awesome. Malkin and Crosby is just a gift. So yeah, give me Raquel as the beneficiary of those two otherworldly talents against the freaking Islanders without Adam Pelech.
I have no problem with what you just said in any capacity whatsoever. Well, I don't think we're gonna have any issues. I'm gonna go with Tage Thompson and Terry Lehkonen.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. I have 5,200 left to fill a guaranteed goal slot.
That is how the numbers would work.
Oh, no, I have 5,800 because stupid
Oh,
Israel's
yeah.
52. I could go Bo Horvat. Uh,
You could do that.
let's see. I don't know.
Ehlers is obviously scoring every game until the cows come home.
Let's take Brad Marchand, 5,300.
So, that's a spicy one.
He's gonna score here. Pasta's back. The salary we use on guaranteed goals is 11,000. I think it used to be 10K, but then I started complaining that I couldn't take Ovi every night, so we moved it up to 11. I'm pretty sure that's the actual synopsis of what happened.
No, I feel like it was just because we just always ended up going to the middle and being like 5K, and then it was like, well, we're never taking Ovi, we're never taking any of these guys, and it was like, yeah, we literally cannot do it. Like it doesn't fit. Yeah. So, bumped it up a little bit. Rax, Marchand, Tage, Lehkonen. I do think it's like a pretty good mix of like guys that are super due, guys that are in unbelievable spots that we'll see what the books have. I really wonder what Lehkonen's price will be tomorrow. I doubt it's up already. No, this is good. I think it's a really good starting point. So again, I guess a recap for anyone that maybe is new or doesn't try hockey often. I think that the recap would be that, I'm crossing out Philly and the Hurricanes. I'm more or less crossing out Pittsburgh and the Islanders. I get that Matt isn't. I understand it. I do think Pittsburgh is at least in play a touch, but I'm not that interested. I'm pretty high on the Flames. I'm going to look at how I want to stack that up and correlate it. Matt's not as interested there. So kind of one of the different spots that we have. We're both, of course, interested in Colorado, both interested in Vancouver at Anaheim. I'm lukewarm on the Sharks. I think that honestly, the more I think about it, the more I think it actually could be a pretty interesting play. Just not sure how I would do it entirely, but I do actually think that Matt's maybe cooking there a little bit. Like Vegas is definitely respecting the Sharks team at home against the Blue Jackets in a really high total. And then, I think we're more or less crossing out the Kings Wild. Not entirely, of course, like Kaprizov exists and but anything else to kind of recap that you're thinking about?
Braden Point status is probably relevant. Like the first thing I'll be thinking of if I plug out of news for 3 hours and I come back in, I'll probably be checking Braden Point, because if he misses, what their lines look like, I think could go a long way to sort of determining whether Tampa's viable on the road in St. Louis. Not the worst spot in the world for a 3% owned Kucherov. So just how to build around that though is still up for debate. And just come hang out in the Morning Skate Pod Discord. You can DM us. I'm at Fake Moods on Twitter. X DJ's at DJ_Mitchell94. And if you haven't yet, just sign up for DJ's Dub Club. Every day he's putting out his top bets of the night. It comes right to you via text or via email. It's far easier
on Sunday.
Yeah, that it did. It's far easier than hounding him on Twitter and refreshing his page or whatever. You just get notified every day when the chef is finished cooking, if you will. So let's
enjoy everything. Hopefully your Tuesday goes well no matter what. And I don't know, just be nice to each other and don't bring any garbage into the Discord. If you do join, I don't care about it. If you have if you want to vote, like Matt said. If you don't want to vote, don't vote. I really don't care. Just don't talk about politics in Discord. We just want to talk about hockey.
Oh, you can.
But
we have a politics channel.
I muted it. So go in there. Perfect idea. Great.
Yeah.
Lovely.
No one wants to hear my ideas. So
no one wants to hear mine either. I'm sure. I don't have any. My idea would be I was with my family for my birthday and stuff, and they're like, "Well, what do you think?" And I was like, "No one is telling me how to fix the Sabres power play." And that's all I really care about. Like if one of them got up there and said, the Sabres need to do this, I would listen. Other than that, I'm just going to watch hockey.
Yeah. And
don't mention Underdog or Jimmy will lose his mind. That site does not exist in his purview.
That is the biggest political disagreement.
3 rules in the Discord. Yeah. There's like 3. If you talk about Underdog in the main channel, Jimmy will cry and kill you. If you talk about politics, I'll cry, but I'll never check Discord anyway, so it doesn't matter. Yep. And the third one is don't bring any porn bots in, because all of us are just finding out there's porn on the internet and we're scared.
Yes, for sure. All right, we're gonna get out of here, but thank you all for coming to hang out with us. This was a blast. It's nice to see that there's actually a dozen people that'll come hang out live with a bunch of with two nerds, just
There you
nerding out
go.
over a spreadsheet and 11 games of hockey. And hopefully you got something that you can use to pursue 50,000, 200,000, a fantasy hockey world championship qualifier seat. Just any whatever you want to on Tuesday. I hope that this podcast served you well in that endeavor. So for Doug, for DJ, for myself, best of luck on Tuesday, everybody. Hopefully Systema does not barn bash our brains in once again, and we will see ya.